Hello, welcome. I am Orson Badger, and today my partner and I are going to be talking about apprenticing, a certain type of requirements. My partner's name is.
Wesley Dike.
What is apprenticing? Analyst actually learning and performing the current tasks under the instruction and supervision of an experienced user. In this technique, the analyst is taught the operations and business processes by asking questions and physically doing rather than being informed of them. The case with protocol analysis is the analyst becomes the person that is doing the job. This way they can learn how it is done. The expert in his career field to be able to teach the analyst on what the practice is that's going on. So how do we implement this? Well, there's a few things that we need to do. First, we have to ask the customer to teach you, because if they don't know that you're there to be taught, they are not going to be paying attention. And you won't be doing anything either. Second, after being taught what to do, you stand and physically do the act. So this means you actually sit there with the customer and you run through the whole process by hand. That way you're learning the procedure. The next thing to do is, while you're doing this, you analyze it to make sure there are ways to make it more efficient. And then you make a mental note of that. Then, thinking about the process as a whole, change, how can it improve? Now, knowing how it works, sit down and start to understand the pros and the cons of the current way that it's working. After that, take that knowledge, write it down, physically put it somewhere. That way you can keep this for future use. If changing or through your determine that to be simpler and change, always keep in mind what the customer. Next slide.
All right. And for this portion of the presentation, I want to kind of cover the merger of the skill set of the customer and the analyst here on the application. As the analyst is able to interact with the customer in an intimate way, such as actually working alongside and getting trained to do the customer's job as it relates to whatever the application is. The master on the analyst side brings a skill set that can empower the application to the customer's needs by bringing available technology and empowering it through structure and bringing efficiency to the application, where those things are more of a analyst and developer skill set more than they would be the customer. That's why they're hiring the analyst. Whereas the customer understands the work in a deep way. They do this every day. They understand how to troubleshoot. They understand needed information, the processes, people involved. They understand some troubles that they face in their current system and setup, and they also have an understanding of why they do the things they do the way they do them. And so when they have this relationship, It's a great way to get information, and the benefits of it is that it's low cost. There aren't a lot of resources needed aside from the training employee, who is not actually required to have some sort of teaching or instructional skill set. Just by doing his normal everyday job, the analyst is able to find the points of the application that need to be addressed at that process, and it provides accurate and up-to-date requirements. Oftentimes, we might run into users who have multiple sets of employees using the application in one way or another, and may or may not be involved in different portions of that application. And this allows the analyst to get a breadth view through interacting with the work environment that the application will be in. Some of the downsides are it is time consuming. It's not very quick. It's not easy. It takes time for the analyst to learn. It requires long periods of the customer's employees' time. This is probably going to take some sort of daily experience over a period of time. And it can be difficult to get multiple users' feedback. They have a single analyst that is trying to apprentice a single customer, usually, is the format. You wouldn't normally do a single analyst apprenticing to multiple different tasks within that customer's work environment. It has the potential to regress into other forms. When we talk about other forms of engineering techniques, we're talking about interview, we're talking about ladder, we're talking about all those other requirements that we went over that are more on the analyzing, the brainstorming. Those techniques have a way of creeping into the apprenticing technique. It is best to use this technique for more technical tasks that are harder to explain or to depict with verbal or written communications. It's not intended for a large customer base where you're needing to get many groups involved. We use this technique to gather data for our bank of data application. We were able to interview, well, we didn't interview, we used the we used the apprenticing technique to gather data. I was able to apprentice my mother on her divvying of funds to her children, which is pretty much what the bank of dad is. It's more like an accounts application for parents. Instead of having to divvy out the money or having the kids ask, we were able to go through. I was able to watch as she went through how she issued the money, what the process was, what were the amounts. I was able to discover the response, how the money was received, how it was kept track. And I did that through observing and then participating in the process, which is one of the core principles of And so to conclude, we have a questions slide here. And that concludes our presentation.